The crystal cities of Prism shattered under the bombardment. Beautiful towers that had stood for 10,000 years crumbled into dust. The Lumini people, beings made of living light and crystal, fled through the streets in terror. They had never known war. They had never imagined it could come to them. High above the planet, the Kravath warships circled like predators. Their dark hulls blocked out the stars. Weapons fired again and again, tearing through the peaceful cities below. The Kravath were massive creatures, covered in natural armor plates with claws that could rip through metal. They had conquered 40 systems in the past year alone. The Gentle Accord was just another target. In the central science tower, Velthari Prime worked frantically at his station. His crystalline hands moved across controls that glowed with soft light. Around him, other scientists abandoned their posts and ran for the evacuation ships. But Velthari Prime stayed. He had found something in the old galactic archives, something that might save them all. "There must be someone," he whispered, his voice like wind chimes. "Someone in this galaxy who can fight." The archive scrolled through thousands of species. All of them were peaceful. All of them had been conquered or absorbed into various empires over the millennia. Then his search found a restricted file, a quarantined region of space. Warning symbols covered the entry. "Forbidden Zone," Velthari Prime read aloud. "Class 12 Death World. Species, hostile environment survivors. Recommendation, do not contact, do not approach." The building shook as another blast hit nearby. Velthari Prime made his decision. He opened the file and found coordinates for the third planet in a system called Sol. Without hesitation, he broadcast a message to those coordinates, a simple distress call in the universal mathematical language. "This is Velthari Prime of the Lumini people. We are under attack. We are dying. If anyone can hear this, please help us." Then the tower collapsed, and Velthari Prime ran. Across the galaxy, on a blue and green planet called Earth, Admiral Taejo stood in the command center of United Terran Command. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Around him, dozens of officers monitored screens and equipment. Earth had been listening to the stars for decades, but the stars had been silent. Until now. "Sir, we're receiving something," Lieutenant Nari said. She was young but brilliant, with quick fingers that danced across her console. "It's a distress signal. Alien origin. They're asking for help." The command center went silent. Every person stopped and stared. First contact. After all these years of wondering if humanity was alone, here was the answer. Admiral Taejo walked to Nari's station. "Play it," he ordered. The message came through, translated by their computers, a desperate voice begging for help. Images came with it, showing the invasion, beautiful cities destroyed, fragile alien beings crushed by armored monsters, a civilization dying. "Where are they?" Taejo asked. "The Velthari system, approximately 40 light-years from Earth," Nari replied. She pulled up more data. "Admiral, the information packet includes details about their species and their attackers. Sir, these people are incredibly fragile. They evolved on a low-gravity world with a calm atmosphere. And the creatures attacking them, the Kravath, they're considered apex predators by galactic standards." Commander Nari pulled up an image of a Kravath warrior, 7 feet tall, covered in armor plates, with claws and sharp teeth. Terrifying by most standards. Taisho studied the image and almost smiled. "By galactic standards," he repeated, "but not by ours." He turned to face his command staff. "Humanity has been preparing for this moment since we first looked at the stars. We built ships, we trained crews. We wondered if we would ever meet anyone out there. Now someone needs our help." "Sir, we don't know anything about galactic politics," one officer said carefully. "This could be complicated." "Someone sent us a distress call," Taejo said firmly. "That's not complicated. That's simple. They need help, and we're going to give it to them. He opened a communication channel to the shipyards orbiting Earth. This is Admiral Tejo. Activate the first contact fleet. Captain Sunho, report to your ship. You're going to make history. Captain Sunho received the orders in his quarters. He was a compact man with steady hands and eyes that seemed to calculate everything. He had fought in the Third Solar War. He had survived situations that killed better men. Now he would lead humanity's first journey to another species. His crew assembled quickly. Lieutenant Hana, his weapons officer, was a woman who could calculate firing solutions faster than the computers. Engineer Doyun was a genius who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Medical Officer Minji had studied every form of biology Earth had to offer. Pilot Jiho was the best flyer in the fleet, with reflexes that seemed almost superhuman. "We're going to meet aliens," Jiho said as they boarded the UTS Indomitable. "Real aliens. And we're going to save them from other aliens. This is amazing." "This is war," Lieutenant Hana corrected. "Don't forget that." The fleet of 30 warships gathered in formation. They were sleek vessels built for speed and power. Humanity had designed them in secret, spending decades perfecting engines and weapons. They had learned from every war Earth had ever fought. Now they would see if those lessons worked against an enemy from the stars. Captain Sunho stood on the bridge of his ship. Through the windows he could see Earth below, beautiful and blue. A death world, the aliens called it. A planet with crushing gravity, violent weather, and dangerous life. But to humans, it was home. It had made them strong. "All ships report ready," Hana announced. "Set course for the Velthari system," Sunho ordered. "Maximum speed." The engines hummed with power. Space twisted around the ships as the faster-than-light drives activated. In an instant, the fleet vanished, leaving Earth behind. They traveled through the void between stars. In the crew quarters, they studied the information from the distress signal. They learned about the Luminae, the Arids, and the Chiton. Peaceful species who had never known war, who had built their civilizations on art and science and philosophy. "They don't even have real weapons," Doyen said, amazed. "Their defense fleet is just for show, pretty ships with no guns." "They've never needed them," Minji added. "Their part of the galaxy has been peaceful for thousands of years. War is something they only know from ancient history." Sunho thought about Earth, about the thousands of years of constant warfare. Every generation learning new ways to fight. Every nation developing better weapons. Humanity had never known true peace. It had made them survivors. "How long until we arrive?" he asked. 6 hours, Jiho reported from the pilot seat. Sunho nodded. "Then in 6 hours, the galaxy learns what a death world breeds. Prepare for combat, and remember, we're not there to conquer. We're there to protect." The crew moved to their stations. Weapons powered up, shields activated. The human fleet raced toward a battle none of them had ever imagined. Behind them, on Earth, Admiral Tejo watched the stars. "Good luck," he whispered. "Show them what humanity can do." In the Velthari system, the Kravith continued their assault. They had no idea that help was coming. They had no idea that they had just made the worst mistake in their empire's history. They had attacked someone under humanity's protection, and humanity was coming. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velthari system. What they saw made every crew member go silent. The planet Prism was burning. Dozens of Kravith warships surrounded it, their weapons firing continuously into the atmosphere. Smaller ships carried cargo up from the surface, filled with stolen resources and captured prisoners. Further out, the remains of the Gentle Accord defense fleet drifted in pieces. "Count?" Captain Sunho asked quietly. 47 enemy ships, Lieutenant Hana reported. Her fingers moved across the weapons console. "Mostly cruiser class. 3 capital ships. They outmass us significantly." Pilot Jiho studied his screens. Their formation is terrible. They're just sitting there shooting. No defensive pattern, no scouts. It's like they've never been challenged. They haven't, Medical Officer Minji said. She was reading the cultural data from the distress signal. The Kravith have been conquering for centuries. Every species they meet surrenders or dies quickly. They've never fought someone who could actually hurt them. Engineer Doyun brought up tactical displays. Their ships are heavily armored but slow. Big engines, lots of power, but no maneuverability. They're built to intimidate and overwhelm, not to dogfight. Sunho processed all of this. The Kravith were bullies, strong, yes, dangerous, certainly, but they had never met real resistance. They fought like someone who had never lost. "Open a channel to the nearest Kravith ship," he ordered. The communication screen flickered to life. A massive Kravith warrior appeared, filling the display. His armor plates gleamed in the ship's lights. His teeth were sharp and numerous. This was Commander Krathnor, leader of the Kravith fleet. "Who dares interrupt the Kravith Empire?" Krathnor demanded. His voice was deep and threatening. Translated by the computers. "I am Captain Sunho of the United Terran Command," Sunho replied calmly. "You are attacking a species under our protection. Withdraw immediately." Krathnor stared at the human for a moment. Then he laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. "Your species is tiny. Your ships are small. You have 30 vessels against my 47. Leave now, little creatures, or be destroyed with the others." Sunho's expression didn't change. "This is your only warning. Withdraw or face the consequences." "I think not," Krathnor sneered. "Perhaps your species will make good slaves after we finish here. Attack them." The Kravith ships turned toward the human fleet. Their weapons charged, glowing with energy. Captain Sunho looked at his crew. "Lieutenant Hana, you may fire when ready." Hana's smile was cold. "With pleasure, sir." Her fingers moved. The Indomitable's main railgun fired. The projectile moved at a significant fraction of light speed. It hit a Kravith cruiser dead center, punching through the armor like paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash. "All ships, engage," Sunho ordered. "Show them what we learned from fighting each other." What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. The human fleet didn't charge forward in a line. They didn't try to match the Kravith's strength. Instead, they scattered in all directions, moving in 3 dimensions. The Kravith, used to fighting in a flat plane, couldn't track them all. Pilot Jiho took the Indomitable into a dive, using the planet's gravity to accelerate. Kravith ships tried to follow, but their heavy vessels couldn't match the maneuver. Jiho came up underneath a capital ship and fired all weapons into its exposed belly. The ship's shields failed, and secondary explosions ripped through its hull. Engineer Doyun worked at his station, his fingers flying. "I'm detecting their communication frequency," he announced. "It's biological. They use radio waves to coordinate. I can jam it." "Do it," Sunho ordered. Suddenly, the Kravith fleet went silent. They couldn't talk to each other, couldn't coordinate. Each ship fought alone, confused and isolated. Lieutenant Hana coordinated the fleet's weapons. She had studied Earth's greatest battles and adapted the tactics for space. The human ships moved in pairs, one drawing fire while the other attacked. They used crossing fire patterns, forcing the Kravith to choose which threat to face. They targeted engines and weapons, crippling rather than destroying, causing disabled ships to drift into each other. The Kravith tried to adapt. They were fighters, after all, warriors who had conquered dozens of systems. But they had never faced tactics like these. The humans fought like they were born to it, because they were. Every maneuver had been tested in humanity's thousands of years of warfare. A Kravith cruiser tried to ram the Indomitable. Jiho saw it coming and rolled the ship at the last second. The enemy vessel missed by meters. As it passed, Hana fired into its engines. The cruiser spun out of control, crashing into two of its own ships. "They're panicking," Doyen reported. "Half their fleet is trying to regroup, but they can't communicate. The other half is still trying to attack us." Medical Officer Minji monitored the casualties. "We've taken some hits, but shields are holding. Minor damage to the port side. No injuries yet." 20 minutes into the battle, the Kravith had lost 18 ships. The humans had lost none. Commander Krathnor watched in disbelief from his flagship. His invincible fleet was being destroyed by tiny ships with tiny crews. How was this possible? The humans were smaller than Kravith warriors. Their ships were less armored, but they moved like nothing he had ever seen. They fought with a precision that seemed impossible. He opened another communication channel. "What are you?" he demanded. Captain Sunho appeared on his screen again. The human looked calm, like he was discussing the weather. "We are humans. We come from a planet called Earth, and you just made a very big mistake." "What mistake?" Krathnor snarled. "You hurt people who asked for our help," Sunho said simply. "We don't like that." The Indomitable fired again. The shot went through two Kravith ships, the projectile so fast and powerful that it didn't even slow down. Krathnor made a decision. "All ships, retreat! Retreat now!" The Kravith fleet broke formation and ran. Their faster-than-light drives activated, and one by one they vanished into the darkness between stars. They left behind 23 destroyed vessels and thousands of their own warriors floating in space. The human fleet didn't pursue. They had come to protect, not to hunt. "Stand down from combat alert," Sunho ordered. "Begin rescue operations for any survivors. Medical teams, prepare to receive wounded, and someone open a channel to the planet. Let them know the battle is over." Down on Prism, in a shelter deep underground, Velthari Prime received the message. His people had watched the battle through their sensors, unable to believe what they saw. The humans had destroyed the Kravith fleet in 30 minutes. 30 minutes. "They want to talk to us," another Lumini said nervously. "The humans, they're coming down to the planet." Velthari Prime was terrified and grateful in equal measure. "Then we will meet them. We owe them our lives." The human ships descended through the atmosphere. They landed near the ruins of the capital city, their engines kicking up dust and debris. Landing ramps extended, and the crews emerged. The Lumine people gathered to meet them. They were still afraid, but they needed to see their saviors. Captain Sunho was the first to step off the Indomitable. He wore a simple uniform and carried no visible weapons, though the Lumini could see the pistol on his belt. His crew followed, each of them looking around at the destruction with sad eyes. Velthari Prime approached slowly. He was taller than the humans, but far more fragile. His crystalline body caught the light, making him seem to glow. "You came," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You actually came." "You asked for help," Sunho replied. "That's all we needed to hear." Medical Officer Minji stepped forward with her equipment. "We need to help your wounded. Can you show us where they are?" The Lumini led them through the city. The humans worked quickly, setting up medical stations and helping the injured. They were careful, aware of how fragile these aliens were. A grip too strong could shatter a Lumini's arm. A careless movement could hurt them. Pilot Jiho helped move rubble from a collapsed building, easily lifting pieces that would take 5 Lumini working together. "How do you live in gravity this week?" he asked curiously. "It feels like I'm on a moon." "This is normal gravity for us," a Lumini explained. "What is gravity like on your world?" "About 2.5 times this," Jiho said casually. The Lumini's eyes went wide with shock. As the sun set on Prism, the humans and the Lumini worked together. The aliens began to relax around their rescuers. These humans were warriors, yes. That much was obvious. But they were also kind, careful. They treated the wounded with gentle hands and spoke in soft voices. In the central plaza, Captain Sunho met with the Lumini leadership. Velthari Prime asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why did you help us? You don't know us. We have nothing to offer you. Sunho looked up at the unfamiliar stars. Because you asked, he said simply, and because it was the right thing to do. The days after the battle were strange for both humans and aliens. The Lumine people watched their new protectors with a mixture of gratitude and fear. Everything about the humans was wrong by their standards. Everything about them was terrifying. Lieutenant Hana walked through the temporary human camp doing her morning exercise routine. She did 50 push-ups in the weak gravity of Prism, barely breathing hard. A group of Lumini scientists watched from a safe distance, their crystalline faces showing shock. She's exercising in combat gravity, one whispered. The Lumine term for Prism's gravity was combat gravity because it was so strong they could only endure it for short periods before exhaustion. And look, she's not even tired, another added. Medical Officer Minji overheard them and smiled. She approached carefully, aware of how intimidating humans could be. Would you like to know more about human biology? It might help you understand us better. The Lumini scientists agreed nervously. Minji set up a presentation in one of the intact buildings. Dozens of aliens gathered, along with representatives from the other Gentle Accord species. The Arids floated like living clouds of gas. The Chitons skittered on their delicate legs. Let's start with basics, Minji began. She displayed an image of Earth. This is our homeworld. As you know from your archives, it's classified as a Class 12 death world. The Arids made a sound like wind through pipes. Their translator rendered it as shocked disbelief. Minji continued. Earth has 1.0 standard gravity. That's about 2.5 times what you experience here on Prism. We evolved under that constant pressure. Our bones are dense. Our muscles are strong. What feels like crushing weight to you feels normal to us. She showed images of Earth's landscape. Hurricanes spinning over oceans, tornadoes tearing across plains, earthquakes splitting the ground. Our planet has extreme weather, she explained. Winds that can knock down buildings, storms that cover half a continent, temperature changes that go from freezing to boiling. We built our civilizations while surviving all of that. A chitin scientist raised one delicate limb. How do you survive such conditions? We adapt, Minji said. Human bodies can function in temperatures from -40 to +50 degrees. We can survive weeks without food, days without water. If we get injured, our bodies heal themselves. We have redundant organs. If one kidney fails, the other keeps working. If we lose blood, our body makes more. She pulled up a medical scan. We even inject ourselves with weakened diseases to train our immune systems. We call them vaccines. Our bodies learn to fight illness by practicing on harmless versions. The entire room went silent. The concept was horrifying to species whose immune systems were fragile and specific. You deliberately make yourselves sick? An Arid asked, its voice whistling with disbelief. To prevent worse sickness later, yes, Minji confirmed. Our immune systems are incredibly aggressive. They attack anything foreign in our bodies. Sometimes they attack too much and we have to take medicine to calm them down. Engineer Doyen joined the presentation. Our planet isn't just dangerous, he added. It's also full of life that wants to kill you. Large predators that hunt in packs, tiny organisms that cause disease, plants with poison, insects with venom. Even some of our fruit will kill you if you eat it wrong. He showed images of Earth's wildlife. Lions hunting zebras, sharks swimming through dark water, bears catching salmon in rivers. These are apex predators from our world, Doyen explained. We evolved alongside them. We learned to hunt them. We learned to avoid them. We learned to survive in an environment where everything was trying to eat us. Velthari Prime's voice was quiet. And the Kraveth? How do they compare to these creatures? Doyen considered the question. The Kraveth are like wolves, dangerous in a pack, smart, aggressive. On Earth, we've been hunting wolves for thousands of years. We respect them, but we don't fear them. The weight of that statement settled over the room. Captain Sunho arrived for the next part of the presentation. He had been asked to explain human warfare. It was not a topic he enjoyed, but they needed to understand. War is part of human history, he began. Not something we're proud of, but something we can't deny. On Earth, every continent developed its own civilizations, and they all fought each other. He displayed a map of Earth with thousands of markers. Each one represented a major battle or war. For 10,000 years, we've been refining the art of combat. We started with sticks and stones. Then we created bronze weapons, iron swords, steel armor. We invented gunpowder and created weapons that could kill from a distance. We built machines that could fight on land, sea, and air. We even created weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single blast. A Lumini scientist's body dimmed with horror. You created weapons to destroy your own cities? Yes, Sunho said quietly. We call them nuclear weapons. We used them twice, long ago. The destruction was so terrible that we agreed never to use them again. But we still have them. A reminder of what we're capable of. He changed the display to show military tactics, formations, strategies, doctrines, developed over millennia. Every generation learned from the previous one. We studied every battle, every defeat, every victory. We created schools to teach warfare. We wrote books about strategy. Some of our greatest thinkers spent their lives understanding combat. Not because we loved war, but because we needed to survive it. Pilot Jiho, who had been listening from the back, spoke up. The thing is, we're not special. We're not the strongest species on our planet. We're not the fastest or the toughest. Lots of animals can beat us in a fair fight. But we learned to make sure fights were never fair. We learned to use tools, to work together, to think ahead. That's what makes us dangerous. The aliens processed this information slowly. They had always wondered what a Deathworld species would be like. Now they knew. Humans weren't monsters. They were survivors who had been forced to become warriors. Over the next week, the cultural exchange continued. The humans learned about the Gentle Accord's history, millions of years of peace and art, species that had evolved without predators, without war, without struggle. They had developed philosophy and mathematics, while humans were still living in caves. You're so much older than us, Lieutenant Hana said to Velthari Prime. Your species has existed for millions of years. Humans have only been civilized for about 10,000. You must think we're children. Velthari Prime made a sound like crystal bells. In years, yes, but in experience, you have lived more in your short time than we have in our long existence. Every human has faced challenges we can't imagine. You are young, but you are not children. Meanwhile, in space, Engineer Doyen worked with Lumini scientists to understand each other's technology. The aliens had developed incredible sensors and communication systems. Their mathematics was elegant and complex, but they had never needed to make weapons, so their ships were fragile. We could help you build better defenses, Doyun offered. Not to attack anyone, but to protect yourselves. The Lumini scientists agreed. They didn't want to become warriors, but they had learned a hard lesson. Peace only exists when no one wants to break it. Back on the planet's surface, Medical Officer Minji made a discovery. Captain, the Kraveth left some of their wounded behind. They're in bad shape, but they're alive. What should we do? Sunho didn't hesitate. Treat them. They're prisoners of war. We treat prisoners with dignity. Minji nodded and went to work. The Kraveth warriors were shocked when humans helped them. They had expected to be killed or left to die. Instead, Gentle hands set their broken bones and gave them medicine. One Kravith warrior, his armor removed and his wounds bandaged, stared at Minji. "Why?" he asked through the translator. "We tried to kill you." "Because you're hurt," Minji replied simply. "That's enough reason." The warrior didn't understand, but he was grateful. As the sun set on another day, Captain Sunho received a message from Admiral Taejo back on Earth. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, serious and concerned. "Captain, we have a problem. Our long-range sensors picked up a massive fleet moving toward your position. It's the Kravith, all of them. They're bringing their entire military to destroy you and finish what they started." Sunho felt his stomach tighten. "How many ships?" "Over 300, Taejo replied, "plus their client species fleets, maybe 400 total." The number was staggering. The human fleet had 30 ships. Even with their superior tactics, the math was bad. "Should we retreat?" Sunho asked. "That's your decision, Captain," Taejo said. "But I want you to know something. The main fleet launched the same day you did. They'll reach you in 72 hours. 200 of our best ships with our most experienced crews. If you can hold the line for 3 days, reinforcements will arrive." Sunho looked around at the ruins of Prism, at the Lumine people who were finally starting to rebuild, at his crew who had fought so hard to protect these innocents. "We'll hold," he said, "no matter what it takes." Taejo smiled grimly. "I knew you would say that. Good luck, Captain. Earth is proud of you." The communication ended. Sunho gathered his officers and told them the news. They had 3 days to prepare for a battle against impossible odds. "Well," Jiho said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes, "at least we won't be bored." 72 hours. 3 days. That was all the time they had to prepare for a battle against an enemy that outnumbered them more than 10 to 1. Captain Sunho stood in the command center on Prism, surrounded by his officers and several Lumine scientists. A holographic display showed the star system, with markers indicating where the Kravith fleet would arrive. "They'll come in here," Lieutenant Hana said, pointing to the outer edge of the system. "It's the standard entry point for faster-than-light travel. That gives us about 6 hours from detection to engagement." "We can't fight them head-on," Engineer Doyen stated. "Even with our better tactics, they have too many ships. We need to change the battlefield." Pilot Jiho studied the system map. "The asteroid field. It's dense, full of rocks and debris. Big ships can't maneuver in there. But our fighters can." Sunho nodded slowly. "We use the asteroids as cover. Hit-and-run tactics. Make them chase us into terrain they can't handle. We can also mine the approach lanes," Hana added. "Remote explosives set on the most likely paths. It won't destroy their fleet, but it will slow them down and make them cautious." Velthari Prime spoke up. "We want to help. Our ships are useless in combat, but our sensors are the best in the galaxy. We can track every enemy ship in the system. We can be your eyes and ears." Sunho looked at the fragile alien with respect. "That would help immensely. Thank you." The next 3 days were a blur of preparation. Doyen and his engineering team worked around the clock, placing explosive mines throughout the system. Hana drilled the fleet on new formations and attack patterns. Jiho trained his fighter pilots on asteroid field navigation. Minji prepared the medical facilities for casualties. The Lumini people helped however they could. They couldn't fight, but they could provide supplies, repair facilities, and most importantly, their advanced sensor network. They linked their entire planetary system into one massive detection grid. Nothing would enter the system without them knowing. On the second day, Sunho visited the Kravith prisoners. They were being held in a secure facility, treated well but guarded. He wanted to understand his enemy better. The Kravith warriors were surprised when the human captain arrived without weapons. Sunho sat down across from the senior prisoner, a scarred veteran named Krathmal. Your empire is coming to finish this, Sunho said. They're bringing everything they have. Krathmal's eyes were hard. You should flee. You fought well, human, but you cannot win this. The Empress herself is coming. She will not stop until you are dead. We're not leaving, Sunho replied calmly. We promise to protect these people. Then you will die for nothing. Sunho leaned forward. Why does your empire do this? Why conquer? Why kill? What do you gain? Krathmal seemed confused by the question. We are strong. The strong take what they want. That is the way of the universe. No, Sunho said quietly. That's just the way you've chosen. Strength can be used to protect instead of conquer. You could be allies to these species instead of their oppressors. You speak of weakness. I speak of choice, Sunho stood. Think about it. You have 3 days. On the 3rd day, the Lumini sensors detected the incoming fleet. Velthari Prime's voice came through every human ship's communication system. They're here. 412 ships. They're entering the system now. Captain Sunho took his position on the bridge of the Indomitable. His crew was at their stations, ready. Around him, the fleet prepared for battle. All ships, this is Captain Sunho. We have 3 days to hold this system. Reinforcements are coming, but we have to survive until they arrive. I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest fight of our lives. Some of us may not see tomorrow, but we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for people who can't fight back. We're showing the galaxy what humanity stands for. He paused, looking at each of his crew members. We are Deathworlders. We are survivors, and we don't quit. Not ever. So let's show them what that means. The human fleet moved into position, spreading throughout the asteroid field and along the approach lanes. They shut down all non-essential systems, going dark. To the Kraveth sensors, they would be invisible until the moment they attacked. The Kraveth armada advanced slowly. Their ships were massive and intimidating. At the center of the formation was the largest vessel anyone had ever seen, the Empress's personal flagship. It was twice the size of any human ship, covered in weapons and armor. Commander Krathnor, his wounds from the first battle still healing, commanded a portion of the fleet. He had warned the Empress about the humans, about their strange tactics and impossible weapons. But she had not listened. Weak creatures, the Empress had said. They are small. We are mighty. Numbers will crush them. Now, as the fleet entered the system, Krathnor felt uneasy. Where were the humans? Why hadn't they challenged the armada? Were they hiding? The answer came in fire and thunder. Doyen's mines detonated across the fleet's path. Ships exploded or veered off course to avoid the blasts. In the confusion, the human fleet attacked from 6 different directions at once. Pilot Jiho led his fighter squadron through the asteroid field like demons. They would appear, fire, and vanish behind rocks before the Kraveth could respond. The big enemy ships tried to follow but crashed into asteroids or each other. Lieutenant Hana coordinated firing solutions from her station. Target the ships on the edges. Isolate them from the main group. The human warships focused fire on individual Kraveth vessels, overwhelming their shields and destroying them quickly. Then they would vanish back into the asteroid field before the rest of the fleet could respond. The Empress was furious. Find them! Destroy them all! But the humans were ghosts. They were everywhere and nowhere. Every time the Kraveth fleet turned to engage, the humans were already gone, attacking from a new direction. By the end of the first day, the Kraveth had lost 40 ships. The humans had lost 2, but they were exhausted. The crews had been fighting for 18 hours straight. We need to rest, Minji urged Sunho. The crew is at their limit. Rotate shifts, Sunho ordered. Half the fleet pulls back to rest. The other half keeps harassing them. We can't let them settle. The second day was worse. The Kraveth adapted to some of the human tactics. They started sending smaller groups into the asteroid field to hunt the fighters. They spread their fleet wider to cover more space. Pilot Jiho's squadron took heavy losses. Out of 20 fighters, only 12 remained. Jiho himself had a long scar on his arm where shrapnel had torn through his cockpit. "We can't keep this up," he reported to Sunho. "We're running out of ammunition and fuel." "How much time do we have?" Sunho asked. "Until reinforcements?" Jiho checked his console. 26 hours. 26 hours. It might as well have been a lifetime. Engineer Doyen had an idea. "Captain, we still have one card to play. The damaged ships from the first wave, the ones we couldn't repair in time. We can use them as decoys." "Explain," Sunho said. "We program them to fly on autopilot. Make the Kravath think they're real ships. Draw them away from the planets while we hit them from behind." It was risky, but they had few options. Sunho approved the plan. On the morning of the third day, the Kravath Empress had had enough. She had lost over 100 ships to these persistent humans. Her fleet was battered and demoralized. She decided to end this personally. "All ships, follow me," she commanded. "We attack the planet directly. Let the humans try to protect it." The massive fleet turned toward Prism. The Lumini people watched in terror as 400 warships approached their world. Captain Sunho saw the movement. "They're going for the planet. All ships, intercept course. We have to stop them." The human fleet raced to get between the Kravath and Prism. It was exactly what the Empress wanted, a direct confrontation. But Sunho had no choice. He couldn't let them reach the planet. The two fleets met in open space. For the first time, the humans couldn't use hit-and-run tactics. They had to hold the line. The battle was brutal. Ships exploded on both sides. Lieutenant Hana's console sparked as a blast hit the Indomitable's shields. Doyen rerouted power from life support to weapons. Minji treated wounded crew members while the ship shook around her. Pilot Jiho's fighter was shot down. He ejected at the last second, floating in space in his emergency suit, watching his comrades fight. The human fleet was being overwhelmed. They had fought brilliantly for 3 days, but they were out of tricks, out of time, out of luck. Then Velthari Prime's voice came through the communication system. There was joy in his crystalline voice. "Captain Sunho, long-range sensors detect. They're here. The reinforcements are here." At the edge of the system, space tore open. 200 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. At their head was the UTS Reckoning, flagship of Fleet Admiral Yuna. Admiral Yuna was a legend in the human fleet. She had fought in the Third Solar War. She had never lost a battle. Her voice came through every speaker in the system. "This is Fleet Admiral Yuna of the United Terran Command. To Captain Sunho and his brave crew, well done. We'll take it from here. To the Kravath Empire, I will say this only once. Withdraw now or face total destruction." The Kravath Empress stared at the incoming fleet. 200 fresh ships. Her own fleet was damaged and scattered. For the first time in her life, she felt fear. "Never," she declared. "We will never surrender to lesser beings." Admiral Yuna's response was cold as the void of space. "Then you have chosen death. All ships, engage." The fresh human fleet moved like a machine of perfect precision. They formed a pattern that Captain Sunho had never seen before, a formation that used every ship to cover the weaknesses of the others. This was the Earth Formation, developed during humanity's bloodiest wars and refined over centuries. Fleet Admiral Yuna commanded from the bridge of the Reckoning. She was older than Sunho, with gray streaks in her hair and scars that told stories of battles won and comrades lost. Her eyes were sharp as she watched the tactical displays. "All ships, execute pattern Delta 7, she ordered. "Let's show them how Earth fights." The human fleet didn't charge wildly. They moved as one, each ship knowing exactly where to be. They created overlapping fields of fire, forcing the Kravath to face attacks from multiple angles simultaneously. When one human ship needed to reload or repair, another moved to cover it. The Kravith tried to respond, but they were already damaged from 3 days of fighting Sunho's smaller fleet. Their formations were broken, their coordination was poor, and now they faced an enemy that was fresh and organized. Captain Sunho's battered first wave joined the formation without hesitation. Despite missing ships and damaged hulls, they slotted into position perfectly. The relief fleet and the first wave fought as one. Lieutenant Hana, her arm bandaged from an earlier injury, still worked her weapons console with fierce determination. Targeting their command ships. If we take out their leaders, the rest will fall apart. Approved, Sunho replied. All first-wave ships, focus fire on the enemy commanders. The combined firepower was devastating. Kravith command ships exploded one after another. Their fleet began to panic. Without leaders, without coordination, they were just individual ships trying to survive. Commander Krathnor watched from his vessel as the Empire's mighty fleet was destroyed. He had tried to warn them, had tried to tell them that humans were different, but no one had listened. Now they were paying the price. The Kravith Empress in her massive flagship realized she was losing. Her entire fleet, the pride of her empire, was being defeated. She tried to rally her forces, but it was too late. Fear had replaced confidence. Survival had replaced aggression. She attempted to retreat. Her flagship turned to flee, engines burning bright. But pilot Jiho, who had been rescued from space by a passing human ship, was already in a new fighter. He saw the Empress trying to escape. "Not this time," he muttered. His fighter was damaged, held together more by hope than engineering. But Jiho was the best pilot in the human fleet. He pushed his damaged craft to impossible speeds. The fighter weaved through the battle, dodging fire and debris. It caught up to the Empress's flagship and fired at the engines. Not to destroy, but to disable. The massive ship's drives failed, leaving it drifting in space. "Flagship disabled," Jiho reported. "She's not going anywhere." Admiral Yuna opened a communication channel to the entire Kravith fleet. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute authority. "Kravith Empire, you are defeated. Your Empress's ship is disabled. Your fleet is scattered. You have one chance to survive this day. Power down your weapons and surrender. Do it now, or we will finish what you started." There was a long silence. The remaining Kravith ships looked at each other, waiting for someone to make the decision. Finally, one ship powered down its weapons, then another, then another. Within minutes, the entire Kravith fleet had surrendered. For the first time in their 1,000-year history, the Kravith Empire had been beaten in battle. The battle was over. The Velthari system was saved. But the real work was just beginning. Over the next weeks, human ships secured the system. Medical teams treated wounded on all sides, including Kravith prisoners. Engineer Doyun and his teams worked to repair damaged vessels. The Lumini people slowly emerged from their shelters to see their world still standing. Captain Sunho was finally able to rest. He had been awake for most of the 3-day siege, running on stimulants and pure determination. When he finally slept, he slept for 20 hours straight. Admiral Yuna took command of the situation. She met with the Gentle Accord leadership and explained what would happen next. "The Kravith Empire will be held accountable for their crimes," she said, "but we won't destroy them. Revenge doesn't build a better galaxy." Velthari Prime was confused. "But they attacked us. They killed so many. Don't they deserve punishment?" "They deserve justice," Yuna corrected. "Not vengeance. There's a difference." A Galactic Council was called. For the first time in millennia, every species in the known galaxy gathered to discuss the events in the Velthari system. The Gentle Accord presented humanity to the galaxy. Admiral Taejo attended via holographic projection from Earth. He stood before hundreds of alien species and addressed them calmly. "We are humans from the planet Earth. For decades, We've listened to the galaxy's communications but remained silent. We watched and we learned. When we received a distress call from the Lumini people, we chose to answer. An elder species called the Void Scholars asked the question everyone was thinking. What do humans want? Surely you expect payment for your protection. Tejo shook his head. We want trade. We want knowledge. We want to be part of the galactic community, but we don't want to rule it. We've seen what happens when strength is used to dominate. On Earth, we've spent thousands of years learning that lesson the hard way. Then what about the Kravith? Another species demanded. They are conquerors, killers. What will you do with them? This was the moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. Captain Sunho stood and addressed the council. He had fought the Kravith, had seen them at their worst, but he had also seen the wounded Kravith warriors in the medical bay, grateful for mercy they didn't expect. The Kravith attacked because they believed might made right, Sunho said. If we destroy them for being strong, we prove them correct. Instead, we propose supervised disarmament. The Kravith will keep their worlds, but they will surrender their military fleet. Human peacekeepers will station in their space for 1 generation. We will teach them what we learned on Earth, that true strength protects, it doesn't dominate. The council was shocked. They had expected humans to demand tribute, or territory, or servitude. Instead, they offered rehabilitation. Commander Krathnor, brought before the council as a representative of the defeated empire, listened to Sunho's words. He thought about the human medical officers who had treated his wounded soldiers, about the food they had been given as prisoners, about the mercy they had been shown. Why? He asked. We tried to kill you. Why show us kindness? Sunho met the Kravith commander's eyes. Because mercy is harder than vengeance, and because maybe you can learn what we learned, that the strongest warriors are those who choose peace. The galaxy debated for days. Some species wanted the Kravith destroyed, others wanted them enslaved. But in the end, humanity's proposal was accepted. The Kravith would be given a chance to change. The Gentle Accord offered humanity membership in their alliance, but Taijo declined politely. Instead, Earth created something new, the Terran Protection Pact. Any species threatened by invasion could request human aid. There would be no cost, no strings attached, just protection. Because that's what we do, Taijo explained. The integration of humans into galactic society began. It was not always smooth. Cultural differences caused misunderstandings. Human strength still frightened many species, but slowly, bridges were built. Lieutenant Hana became a military instructor, teaching defensive tactics to species that had never known war. Her students were afraid of her at first, but they learned that she was patient and kind, even if she could break most of them with one hand. Engineer Doyun worked with Lumini scientists. Together, they created hybrid technologies that combined human practical engineering with alien theoretical mathematics. Their first project was a new type of shield that could protect fragile species from the dangers of space travel. Medical officer Minji collaborated with Chiton healers. They shared medical knowledge, finding ways to treat injuries across dozens of different biologies. Her work saved countless lives. Pilot Jiho, naturally, started an entertainment business. He performed flight stunts that made aliens faint from fear and cheer with excitement. He became famous across a dozen systems as the crazy human who flies like he wants to die. Captain Sunho remained in the Velthari system for several months, overseeing the peacekeeping operations. The Kravith were cooperative, if sullen. They were slowly learning that there was honor in protection as well as conquest. One day, Velthari Prime asked to show Sunho something special. They traveled to Earth together. It was the first time any Lumini had visited the human homeworld. Velthari wore a heavily reinforced environmental suit. Even so, Earth's gravity crushed him. The dense atmosphere felt like pressure from all sides. The sun was too bright. The weather was violent. This was a world that wanted to kill him. They stood on a mountain peak, looking out over forests and valleys. The sunset painted the sky in colors that would have blinded Velthari without his suit's filters. "How did you survive this?" Velthari asked, his voice filled with awe and horror. Sunho breathed the air deeply. It smelled of pine trees and distant rain. "We didn't just survive. We thrived. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Every day was a battle. But it made us strong. And more importantly, it taught us what really matters." "What's that?" "Life is precious," Sunho said quietly. "Every human knows what it means to fight for survival. We know how fragile existence is. That's why we fight for others, because we understand the value of simply being alive." Velthari looked at the alien landscape. To him, it was a nightmare world. To humans, it was home. And from this terrible place had come a species that chose to protect rather than conquer. "Your people call this a death world," he said. "We call it home," Sunho replied with a smile. Years passed. Humanity spread through the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as partners. Human ships patrolled the space lanes, protecting trade routes. Human soldiers trained defense forces. Human doctors shared medical knowledge. Human engineers built better technology. The Kravath, under human guidance, slowly changed. The first generation, raised without military aggression, grew up learning a different way. They became traders and explorers instead of warriors. Commander Krathnor, now elderly, admitted that humanity had been right. There was more honor in protecting than destroying. Earth became a hub of galactic culture. Aliens visited to see the legendary death world that had produced such an unusual species. They came expecting monsters and found people. Dangerous people, yes. Strong people, absolutely. But also kind people. Protective people. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Strength without compassion was tyranny, but compassion without strength was vulnerability. Humanity offered both. One day, Admiral Taeyo, now very old and preparing to retire, received another distress signal. It came from the far side of the galaxy, from a species humanity had never met. They were under attack. They were dying. They needed help. Taejo read the message and smiled. He opened a communication channel to the nearest human fleet. "Dispatch immediately," he ordered. "Someone needs our help." The commanding officer acknowledged. "Yes, sir. The fleet will launch within the hour." Because that was the promise humanity had made. When someone sent a distress call to Earth, when someone asked for help, humans answered. Every single time. The Deathworlders who brought hell to those who threatened the innocent. The survivors who became protectors. The warriors who chose peace but were ready for war. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not conquest or dominance, but the simple promise, you are not alone. If you need help, we will come. And across the stars, on countless worlds, people looked up at the night sky and felt safer knowing that somewhere out there, humans were watching. The Deathworld's children had found their place among the stars, not as rulers or destroyers, but as guardians. And the galaxy was better for it. In the end, Earth's greatest export wasn't technology or weapons or even knowledge. It was hope. The hope that someone would answer when you called for help. The hope that strength could be used for good. The hope that even in the vast, dangerous darkness of space, you didn't have to face it alone. Because humanity had answered the call once, and they would answer it again and again for as long as the stars burned. This was the legacy of the Deathworlders. Not fear, but hope. Not domination, but protection. Not war, but peace defended by those willing to fight for it. And it all started with one simple distress signal and one simple answer. "We're coming. Hold on."